Muted.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon. It is 3:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Today's webinar, of course, is College and Career Ready Graduates, presented by Patte Barth and Annette Wallace. I'm your moderator today. My name is Janice Case, and I am a faculty consultant with NASSP. It's my pleasure to spend the time this afternoon. As a former school leader myself, I can tell you that the information that you're going to receive in the next hour or so is going to be largely beneficial for people in a variety of roles. So we're looking forward to sharing that information with you. Some technical things as we get started. Everyone is muted, given the large size of our audience. Of course, that's usually the best way to go about a webinar. So as we go through, we're going to ask that if you have questions, you can go ahead and type those in, if you would, pose those in the question box, and I'll go over those directions in a moment. But for now, if you have any technical issues, if you're struggling with sound, etc., this is the GoToWebinar attendee support number there on your screen. You might want to take a screenshot of that or use your phone real quick to take a pic. That way, if you have any issues as we proceed, you'll be able to get those problems resolved. It is, of course, National Principals Month, so congratulations and happy Principals Month to those of you on the line who are our nation's principals at this time. And in part of our celebration and acknowledgement, NASSP does have a different active Twitter handle. You can see it on your screen there, at #ThankAPrincipal. So if you haven't already, but you are somebody who tweets, we would encourage you to tweet at that hashtag during the webinar today in order to share your learning and your experience this afternoon. You can also, of course, as you likely know, follow us on Facebook. Of course, our website there at www.nassp.org/webinar is where you go to see all the webinars we have presented and see the recorded versions of those. So those are there. Those are archived usually within a few days after the actual event so that anyone can go on and access them after the fact. Also, you'll be able in that same place to get a certificate of attendance. Sorry about that. So if you attended today's webinar and you'd like if you need some kind of documentation for purposes of professional learning points and those types of things, you'll be able to get that at nassp.org/webinar complete, where we can confirm your attendance. So in the webinar today, we're going to present the sometimes conflicting public opinions about college and career readiness and offer guidance for gauging how deep support is in your own school community. You'll learn about strategies to help raise awareness among different stakeholder groups about the new standards, including how instruction will change. And you'll also hear about the tools in the toolkit that will help you foster a collaborative work environment focused on effective standards implementation that serves the needs of all students. So you're thinking to yourself, what toolkit, Janice? Well, as a part of the Learning First Alliance grant, NASSP, in collaboration with the National School Boards Association, have joined together to create a Get It Right Communications Toolkit, which is designed to assist school board members, superintendents, and principals in having conversations within their communities about what college and career readiness looks like for today's students. And to lead us down that path of giving you that great information are our two presenters today. We have with us Patte Barth and Annette Wallace. Patte is the director of the Center for Public Education, an initiative of the National School Boards Association. NSBA Center provides practical information and analysis about challenges and successes facing the public schools across the U.S. Patte has over 20 years of experience working with education issues and policy. She's the author of several reports, including studies on the misalignment between high school and college career expectations. Her co-presenter is Annette Wallace. Annette is the principal of Pocomoke High School in Pocomoke City, Maryland. She's the 2016 Maryland State Principal of the Year. Annette believes that every student deserves the opportunity to experience success and prosperity. Every student in Pocomoke must commit his or her intent to specialized learning beyond high school diploma requirements. Pocomoke implemented the Project 100, which instills hope that every student will obtain an education beyond high school, either through college, workforce development, or the military. And as a result, 1 year after Project 100 began, 100% of the graduating class was accepted to a college or university. So with that, I'm Melissa Head, and I am going to turn the presentation over to first co-presenter, Annette Wallace. Annette? Annette, are you, there we go.
I'm here. I think I was muted.
Sorry about that.
No, that's great. Am I turned over? Am I ready to go?
You are, yes.
Perfect. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to get to share our story at Pocomoke High School about our Project 100 and how that relates to college and career readiness. I'm making an attempt to advance the slide, and I'm not able to. I'm not sure. There we go.
Okay, perfect. So I've done that for you. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to begin just by sharing some research that we came across at Pocomoke High School about from EPIC research. And so when they looked at 100 middle school students, 93 of those students wanted to go to college. 70 of them actually graduated from high school. 44 of them enrolled in college, and 26 of them earned a college degree. And so as a principal in a small town, and I'm just going to give a little background about my school. We're a small school. We have about 350 students, and about 72% of our students live in poverty. The majority of our students are African American. And so certainly the poverty issue itself presents a lot of challenges for our school, and so it was really important for us where they needed to be as far as at that time high school assessments. The Park assessments weren't here yet, and I know we're going to be talking about college and career readiness, but we just, our scores weren't where they needed to be. Our graduation rate wasn't terrible. It's always been pretty good. At Pocomoke, we've always been right around 90 or above 90 every year. But the fact is that our community was living in poverty. When 72% of your community is living in poverty, and you look at the dreams of your children, which this research showed, and 93% of them want to go to college, we knew that we had to do something different for our students. I'm not sure if, perfect, there we go. There we go. I'm sorry, I'm trying to advance the slide. I think there's a little, I'm not sure if there's a lag there or not.
I think there's a little delay, but it's working.
Okay, perfect. So the next thing we wanted to do is we looked at the national research, and then we wanted to see where our students were. And so we have access to clearinghouse data as a county. And so when we looked at that clearinghouse data, and there is a lag on that data as well, I think it's a 6-year lag on that data, but what that data said was 52% of our students were enrolled in college in the fall after their senior year. 57 were enrolled at some point during the year following their senior year, because we know, that sometimes they don't make it right into college that fall. So by the spring, 57% of them were enrolled, 47% of them returned for a second year, and 26% of our students earned a college degree, which interestingly enough was exactly what the national statistic from that data said. And so initially, as we looked at that data, it's just disappointing, because we're not going to change our community, and I think that's one of our goals as a school, is to change our community. So when only 26% of our community moving forward is getting a college degree or getting some kind of education beyond high school, we're not going to be able to move our community forward. And so after looking at the national data, we then looked at our school data. I'm going to try to advance. Perfect. And so this was some heavy lifting to do for our school. We started a Vanguard team. That as a principal, I think one of the things that's really important when you're creating an initiative like this initiative is to get all of the players at the table. And so when I say getting all the players at the table, I wasn't just looking for people on my staff who were going to agree that this was a really, really good idea. I wanted to have some of those naysayers at the table. I wanted to have some of my internal power structure, my teachers who held other teachers look to them for advice. So we all got around the table. We also brought in our local community colleges because when we looked at where our kids were going to college, over 50% of them were at least starting at our local community college. So we got them at the table, and we sort of shared this idea. One of the ways to not only get our staff on board, but get our kids on board as we move to that phase was to show them how much an education is worth. Because as adults, money talks, and as for kids, money definitely talks. So this data is not new data, but it's the last data that we were able to find in a graphic like this, and so it works for us, even though the data is a little old now, and it's a little it's the mean earnings in 2011 and the unemployment rates. But if you look there at that chart, we can see that with just a high school degree, your average earnings then were $42,000. If students went on to get an associate's degree, $51,000, bachelor's degree, $72,000, a master's degree, $90,000, a doctorate degree, $120,000, which we know. I always share with my kids jokingly that we know this information isn't right because Miss Wallace makes far less than where I should be on that chart. So it's a little bit off for us, but when we speak to the value of an education, there's certainly like a dollar sign value to it as well, as just the value of having that education and something that no one can take away from you. So we shared this information with our staff as we began this, and we shared this information with our students. So our goal is for 100% of our students to commit their intent to studying and getting an education beyond high school. An education beyond high school, I just shared with you some data about college. For us, it doesn't have to be college. It can be college. It can be starting at a community college. It can be a college or university. It can be the military, because certainly we believe at Pocomoke High School the most noble work that you could do would be serving your country, and certainly going into the military, you're getting a lot of specialized training beyond high school that, you know, whether you choose to be a career serving in the military or you choose to come out, you're going to have a specialized education while you're there. So that counts for us, as well as a workforce development program, because I think as we talk about college and career readiness, one of the things that's very important is our partnership with our technical high school and the workforce development training programs that they offer students there. For us, the important piece is when they finish that program at the technical high school, that let's say it's welding, it's important to us that we make those connections with their welding apprenticeship so that they finish that apprenticeship, or if they're going to be an electrician, that they finish up that work so that they can be a master electrician. But that's a great partnership for us too as well, because we certainly value that. And I think as we probably move into the questions phase, I think that's a big part of it, because I think there's a lot of conversation out there and everybody thinks it's all about everybody going to college. And it's certainly, I think, good for, one of the things I always push for my workforce development kids, because in our community, many of them, whether it's an electrician or a plumber or a welder, they are going to own it's going to be a small business. They're either going to work for a small business, or hopefully, I always hope that my kids are going to be the owners of the small businesses there. And so certainly getting some business classes, whether that be at their community college or whether that be while they're with us at our school or at our technical high school, that piece is important for them as well. So our goal is for 100% of our kids to have a plan for after they leave us. And one of the things that's interesting about it, as we sat down and talked about it, and I was a student athlete myself. I probably came to school so that I could participate in sports more than necessarily getting an education. It was just important for me to come and get to play. But we always celebrate anytime an athlete signs a letter of intent to play at a college, we make a really big deal out of it. Even, nationally, when we have kids who are going to, big schools on full rides, those are things that you see on the news, and they get drafted and things like that right from there. And so it confused me at why we make such a big deal out of an athlete signing to play at college, but we don't make a big deal about our students intending to study and gain an education beyond high school. So the culmination of this is called our intent night, and that comes from the slide that you see on the screen. We have an intent night where we celebrate, we roll out the red carpet. The first year we did this, our state superintendent came down and was our keynote speaker for our intent night, and every student walks down the red carpet with something from what they're doing. So if they're a welder, oftentimes they'll bring a piece of their welding equipment and their mask. If they are going on to beautician school, they might bring some styling things. If they're going to college or university, they usually have a pennant or a hat or a sweatshirt, or sometimes they have all of those things. So it's just a really, really special night where we get to celebrate what our kids are planning to do academically beyond high school. And so it's a really, we hold it the week before 7 days before graduation. We hold it in our gym, so it's like a big celebration. It's a really, probably for me as a principal, next to graduation, it's probably the best night that I have as a principal, the best night that we get to all celebrate together what our kids are doing as they move forward. And so how do we accomplish this? There's a little graphic up there that talks about high expectations, a high level of support, and strong relationships. Certainly for us, like I said, when we talk about college and career readiness, it's my expectation that everybody's getting some kind of education beyond high school. So those are our expectations, and we live in a community, like I said, where 72% of students live in poverty. So those families really struggle. And I would say out of that 72%, very few of them have an education beyond high school. Many of them are facing generational poverty, and they are the first student in their family to graduate from high school. So when I came to Pocomoke originally, that was like a culture change, and it's still a culture shift for our community. It's a heavy lift because many of our families are just so excited that their child is graduating from high school because they're the first one. And so we're still working to change that culture, and I'll talk later about some other things we're doing with our community to do that. But the high level of support is also extremely, extremely important, because they are missing out on background knowledge, they're missing out on opportunities, and so we really try to do all those things for them. And then obviously that final piece that holds everything together is those relationships with our kids. And so that's a graphic that I always use when I talk about this project, because it's really important to us. We partner with our local colleges and universities. The military does a really great job of getting into schools and recruiting. The colleges and universities do some of that, but we really have spent a lot of time with them, meeting with our team and our goals, and coming in extra and meeting with our kids. And then that workforce development programs, we've really worked to expand that, and we've learned a lot along the way. I think sometimes as educators at my school, we thought we knew a lot, and then we entered Project 100 and we really realized how little we knew about the opportunities that our students had after they left us. And so we've learned a lot about that. We shifted our school day. So as a high school principal and as a high school math teacher, I was a math teacher before I was a principal, whenever my principal came to me and said he wanted to do something, that was going to cost me instructional time, my first comment back would be, I've got to teach math. I don't have time to teach calculus and teach kids how to have better character. I have to teach math. That's important. So I wanted to show my teachers, and as we move forward, as our group moved forward, that this was important to us and that we were committed to it. And so we extended our school day so that teachers didn't lose any instructional time. And we created bi-weekly homeroom meetings. And they're focused on a lot of different things. Every grade level learns something different, and my students stay with their same homeroom teacher for 4 years. It's one of the beautiful things about being a small school. And through those, our guidance counselors and our Project 100 team together have developed those lessons. And actually, we have a great, great, great partnership with our community college, Warwick community college, and they helped us actually write lessons. They come in and do visits during some of our homerooms and meet with several groups of homerooms at the same time. And so it really has been a collaborative effort in developing those, but also it had to be a commitment from the administration that we were going to extend our day so that we could accommodate for this and not lose instructional time. We also have an information system called Naviance. To be honest, we're really still in the infancy stages of that. I think there are a lot of opportunities for students with that software, and we just really are still exploring that. We developed pathways for our students. So literally, like, they get a brochure that's a roadmap for them that tells them exactly what they need to take as a freshman, what they need to take as a junior, what they need to take as a sophomore, senior, each year what they need to take. Because one of the things that we found was that our minority students were under-enrolled in our advanced placement courses, and that was a problem. And socioeconomically, when we looked at our AP courses, it was that 20% of our students who weren't living in poverty were the kids sitting in AP courses. And one of the things that we discovered was a roadblock was that our students living in poverty didn't know what path they had to take to get to those AP classes. And it wasn't that they didn't want to or that they couldn't. It was just they didn't have a map to know how to get there. So we literally created a roadmap and a program for them. And now, 5 years later, our advanced placement courses, we're in our fourth year of our Pathways program, which is the system that we created for kids. And our enrollment in our advanced placement and dual enrollment courses mirrors not only the socioeconomic status of our school, but it also mirrors our racial demographics of our school as well. So our African American students are enrolling in AP courses, and they're sitting in those classes and excelling at the same rate. And we went from 30 dual enrollment AP opportunities 4 years ago to this year we had 93 students enrolled. And we took it from, my teachers took it from 24% pass rate to 50% last year. So we're really excited about those pathways and how they're working for our students. We also created a timeline for them because, again, when students come from homes of poverty, my parents, as a middle class student, were telling me you have to register for your SATs, ACTs. My parents had a roadmap for me. They knew what I needed to do. It also helped that my mom worked at our local community college, so she knew everything I had to do, and she didn't hesitate to tell me about it. But my students don't all have that person at home, and so we've worked with our community college and our local colleges to create a timeline for when should you take the SAT first? How many times should you take the SAT or ACT or ASVAB test? And so we created a timeline for them so they knew my freshman year, here's what I got to do while I'm a freshman, and here's what's important if this is whatever my pathway is. We have some signature events, and I'm checking on my time here, so you guys can let me know when I get to. I don't want to get into Patty's time, but we have several community events. One of the things that we really like to do is get out in our community, so we take our Project 100 out on the road. We speak about it. I think I've probably spoken to every civic organization, and we are a very small town, but I think we have like 7 civic organizations in our town. I've spoken to all of them. I've also gone out in our county and spoken to a lot of different civic organizations about it. We've built great partnerships with our local hospital. I mean, that's something we didn't even know was out there, and they were like, bring your kids and show them that, you don't have to be a doctor or nurse to work at our hospital. You can, if you're a PR person, we'd love to have you work here. We have a whole PR department. We have if you're an accountant, we have a whole department in it, and I think we're such a small community that we think traditional all the time, and our local hospital was just an amazing partnership to go out there and hold events with them. We also take our kids to see a lot of colleges and universities. We also focus on, we have several one big local community college, but a couple hours, 2 hours south of us, we have another really great community college that really is very, very focused on workforce development. So each year we take a trip there. We take our FAFSA on the road. So we visit our community, we go to our library, we go to a restaurant, we do all of that on the road for parents. We also do it at our school, interestingly enough. In about an hour, we have our first FAFSA night here at school. But we take it out on the road, and we have found that our parents are reluctant sometimes to come into school, although we're really trying. It goes back to that culture. We're going out to our parents still, but we really want to create a place where they feel safe to come to us. And it's been 5 years that my leadership team has been here, but I think that we're making some progress, but we're just not there yet. And probably one of the best things is our community college. They come to us and they do a one-stop shop. What we've found is that our students don't realize that they don't get to community college, and they'll be like, well, Miss Wallace, I meant to go, but my mom didn't take me over to register, so then I didn't register, so I didn't go. Warwick has been amazing for us, and I'm sure I'm sure your local community college would do this for your school. They come in and they do financial aid, they do the application with them, and they do the registration. So it's literally a one-stop shop in our media center. They bring all three departments, financial aid, admissions, and registration. They bring to Pocomoke High School. And so in early May, before my kids graduate at the end of May, in early May, my students, which is about 60% of them that attend our community college, my seniors walk out of our media center with their schedule for the fall. So they're already scheduled, registered, ready to go. All they've got to do is go pick up their books on their first day to class. They're ready to go. And so that's really, really been a great partnership for us with them. And then just briefly to share about how we get the word out. I'm a big social media person. I'm always finding other amazing things that other schools are doing, and our team takes it and builds on it. And so one of the things I found is that Twitter works well for my kids. Instagram works really well for my kids, although I don't engage with them on Instagram. Our guidance department does. And then for our parents, Facebook works really well. And so we've just really found that like putting stuff out on social media and engaging with parents and kids that way has just been so powerful. I graduated from high school like 18 years ago, and it doesn't seem to me like the world has just changed so much in a short period of time with social media. And so we really try to use that to get the word out. I found like email doesn't work great with my parents, but they figure out how to get on social media and get their news. And so we really, really try to use social media to our advantage. And we're excited about the opportunities, the positive opportunities that social media presents to us, because certainly it presents challenges as well. And I shared this already, and then I'll get ready to turn it over, but we go out in our community, and that's a big thing for us. And so that's kind of how we get our word out. So I will turn it back over to, I guess Patty is up next.
Yep, that's perfect. All right, Patty, are you able to forward the slide? Perfect.
Yes, yes, it's working. I love this. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Annette. I spoke with Annette for the first time this week and got a preview of the great story in Pocomoke City, and it's really a lot to learn from. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the toolkit that we have developed in collaboration with NASSP, as Janice said, with the assistance of small grant from the Learning First Alliance as part of their Get It Right campaign. Their lag, I'm not moving.
I think there's a lag that happened with Annette as well. I'm going to try one more time. Okay. Give that a shot. There we go.
There we go. All right, very good. Yes, thank you. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to give you a very, very brief overview of the kind of resources we have in this toolkit to help you with engaging your community. And then I'm going to give you a preview of some of those resources that we have. And certainly as we heard from Annette, and I know you're probably encountering this in your communities as well, that we, schools across this country, you've all taken on this great college and career ready agenda. It's requiring a lot of new ways of thinking, new ways of instruction, new ways of scheduling. What you need to make that successful, in addition to good strategies, implementation, and so forth, you need the support of your community. And that's the rationale behind this toolkit. You can see the URL. It is live right now. If you want to take a look after we're done here, I certainly hope you will, and let me know what you think. In it, we give you tools for helping to make the case for college and career readiness. That has been getting some pushback in some communities. So we have some videos here. We have a video of a principal talking about it in his high school. We have some data that you can download. I'm going to show you a little bit of that. We also have some community engagement tools. And this is, I want to say that we were able to pool resources between NASSP and NSBA. We had a lot to help you in engaging your communities. There's some survey instruments. There's some tip sheets about conducting meetings. And we also have some guidance on how to actually put these standards into practice. We have an implementation guide for using labor management collaboration teams to really propel the work, in addition to some research and articles and so forth. That's the quick version. What I want to do now is show you some of the good stuff that we have in there. And the first is some public opinion survey data. One thing you may be encountering, and I know a lot of districts are, is, as I said earlier, some pushback. On the whole, certainly driven by pushback on the Common Core, but it has been spilling over to college and career readiness in general. So one thing is helpful for you is to understand where your community is. Now I can show you nationally where people are. That the support for the Common Core, this came out a survey this year, Education Next, it has fallen. 4 years ago, 2012, 9 in 10 members of the public and 9 in 10 teachers were very supportive of the Common Core standards. In 4 years, you can see how that support has fallen. About half of the public and a little bit less of teachers are supportive now of the Common Core. Well, what happened? Implementation happened, and that can be a little rockier than people want. They want things to happen right away, and maybe they don't, or there are things that they don't understand. Also, the issue became somewhat politicized. And so I find this really fascinating. A lot of what is driving some of the anxiety about Common Core is based on misinformation. This was a survey done at Farley Dickinson University a year ago, and they asked the public about the Common Core, how much they knew about the Common Core, and they asked if each of these topics are in the Common Core. Sex education, evolution, global warming, American Revolution. None of these topics is in the Common Core. All right, but you can see across parties, a plurality said that those topics were covered in the Common Core because that's what they've been hearing. And this is really curious to me. It turned out that those individuals who reported knowing a lot about the Common Core were the most likely to be wrong about what the Common Core is. And you can see here that those who reported a lot, about 1 in 4 or fewer, were right about all 4 topics. And those who reported saying nothing or hearing nothing about the Common Core, actually were right more often than any other group. So another way of looking at it, that first question, from 2012 to 2016, do you support the Common Core standards? Well, they asked the same question, but instead of using the words Common Core, they used the words standards that are the same across states. And you can see that the general public is about the same. Support in 2012 dropped for teachers, but both groups were more likely to support common standards than they were the Common Core. And support for common standards, you can see here a majority that crosses racial groups and political groups. So what does that mean? That means that you probably have some support out there for the idea of common standard of college and career ready standards. Now, the most important constituency, of course, is your parents, what they're thinking, and you may be hearing from them. Overwhelmingly, parents recognize that what their kids are getting today needs to be much better than what a student needed 20 years ago. So they already know that. But when we ask them about the new standards, the new college-ready standards, we begin to see some ambivalence. All right. So in this first question here, is the change in standards better or worse? Well, you can see a slight majority say it's worse. But then you ask them, what is increasing, what is decreasing? Well, these same parents are reporting that students are learning more. They're reporting that the academic challenge has increased under the new standards. But they also recognize that standardized testing, or they're saying the standardized testing has increased. And that certainly correlates with a lot of other surveying that shows there's a lot of anxiety about the amount of testing. And it all seems to be conflated in what the new standards are and what they need to do. And so that's why these communication strategies are so important. You need to understand where they are in your community, among your parents, among your teachers and your students. And you also have to do a lot of the things that Annette was describing. Start these conversations, show what's going on in the classroom, and really make that case for why this is important. So what I want to do now is just between NASSP and NSBA, we have a lot of information about why college and career readiness is needed and how you can implement that. In terms of making the case, I'm just going to feature a report briefly that we have been working at here on at NSBA. It's published. You can find this on our website and in the toolkit. We have done a lot of work here in the last few years on college readiness. We're not alone, and a lot is known about what you do in high school will lead to better prepared graduates for entering college and succeeding in college. But we thought there was less known about the career readiness side of it. So we looked into the one of the Department of Education's longitudinal studies. This one followed the high school sophomores from 2002, so they were graduates in 2004 and followed them to age 26. So what we wanted to do was look at their experiences in high school and then look at their outcomes at age 26, both economically and socially, and see if there was a relationship there to better outcomes. Well, the first thing we found is, we saw Annette's data on how many students are going to college. Overall by age 20, you can see 79% have gone into college, but by age 26, only 12% of the 2004 graduates had never enrolled in college, and that would be a 2- or 4-year institution. Of course, this doesn't mean that they completed, just that they had enrolled. So they are going. We also looked at their outcomes, and here we're seeing that individuals who had gone to college, all right, that whole group of college goers, overall outperformed those who had not gone to college by age 26 on these various economic factors. They were more likely to be employed full-time, have a job with health insurance, had a retirement fund. We also looked at other things, likelihood of voting, volunteering in the community, and this pattern showed up again and again. Not a big surprise to anyone, but we were able to dig in deeper and tease apart that group of non-college goers. And this is what we found. We found that with certain, what we call credentials, certain experiences in high school, that it can make a big difference. And you can see that individuals who had that preparation but did not ever enroll in college actually performed better, or at least as well, on these indicators as those who went to college. Now, what are these characteristics? What we call credentials, for a lack of a better term. We really struggled over that. But at the get-go, it looks a lot like what leads to success in college. They had at least Algebra 2. They had at least, advanced biology, high-level science. They had earned a GPA of C+. All right, that's not, stellar, but it's still good. In addition, they had completed an occupational concentration in high school, meaning 3 courses in the same CTE field, and that led to a professional certificate or license, or as Annette cited, the case of apprenticeship, and that license. All right. So what does this mean in real dollars? The impact of these credentials on earnings. If you start here, the low credential grad, that would be the high school graduate who had none of those attributes or credentials. At age 26 was earning $10.28. You add the professional license, you jump up $4 an hour. Occupational concentration, another $2. Throw in the Algebra 2, $2 more. Advanced biology, another $1. C+ GPA, we add another 40, 50 cents. And that adds up to, as you can see, close to $5 an hour more at age 26. And this is how it compares to that group of college goers. They're earning about $3 more an hour than that group of graduates who went to college. So it really shows how important that high school preparation is, not just for going for college, but for preparing for careers. And something else, I don't have the data here, but I do want to mention that we were also able to look at, and this is in our final report, we teased apart that college-going group. And it turned out that the high school graduates who did not go to college, but had those high credentials, they outperformed the group of graduates who went to college, did not complete. They outperformed the 2-year degree holders, and they were close to the same performance as those who had a 4-year degree or better. Now, what we want to say is that, yes, this is vitally important for all kids, especially those who are not going to college, don't want to go to college. But the other side of it is, truthfully, it's good for all kids. We know from other research how much CTE can engage and keep kids in school, and even if they're going to college right after school, hey, as a parent, we really expect them to be working someday. And it does, these credentials does help. It gives a boost in every category of attainment. So this is just the kind of thing that you can share with your community to help build that case if there's any question, if there's any doubt. I know we had a school board member in Mississippi who saw this, and she's got this graph in all of her middle and high schools. And why this is important is that even if your community is behind this, to go, yes, we want everybody college and career ready, they need to understand that this is a long game. Making this shift is hard work. It takes time. We can get good, fast results, but to really transform everything and get everybody college and career ready is going to take a lot of time, resources, and support from both within the school and outside the school. That is what we're hoping to help you with in this toolkit, and I'm really eager to hear your questions.
Okay, Patty, thank you so much. Okay, so folks, basically we are, as Patty said, at the question and answer portion now of our presentation. So this is a great opportunity now to go ahead and pose questions. And what we'd like to suggest, I sent this note out on the chat box earlier, but if you have a question that you'd like to pose to our presenters, if you could just type it there in your question box, and you see that screen in your control panel. If you type that question there in the question box, and as they are populated, I will come back to them and pose them to our presenters for a response. I'm going to go ahead and start with what I have here, and again, as they continue to pop up on the screen, I will come back to them. So Patty and Annette, I think we've agreed that you'll kind of jump in as you see appropriate. I want to start with the question, how, or does CTE rather help students who intend to go directly to college? Patty, I think we said that might actually work best for you, but either way. So how does CTE help students who intend to go directly to college?
Yeah. Oh, well, this is Patty. As I said, it does help those who intend to go to college. For one thing, a lot of the CTE programs have a very broad, they've got a lot of room in there, okay, and it contains preparation for both college and careers. One of the examples is health sciences. In that strand, you can prepare. That preparation will get you ready to be certified to be a nurse's aide, or something right out of school you can go into. It also prepares you to enter for your college, go on to med school and be a brain surgeon if that's what you aspire to. So yes, it is important for all students, but I would love to hear from Annette and her experiences.
Absolutely. It can be helpful in a couple of different ways. Immediately for high poverty students, I think of the opportunities it offers them, allowing them to work their way through college, because certainly for them, they can make a living, or many times, like my students are working to provide for their families. So if they can have that training in high school through CTE, it allows them to hold down a pretty good job, that's providing for their family while they are attending college, which is, I think, one huge benefit of CTE. I think another benefit can also be through many of our CTE programs at our school, at our technical high school, involve dual enrollment credits. And I think Patty alluded to that some, but it's certainly, we have students who could be leaving us and almost have an associate's degree just because so many of those credits they took through their CTE track, or we have dual enrollment agreements with our local colleges or our community college, and so they actually leave us with that credit. So it also provides, really good, because certainly many times part of that is an internship. It provides them a great real world experience, and truthfully, sometimes I think back and I think I could have saved a lot of money if I had just taken a couple of auto mechanic classes. I'd be able to change my own oil. We even talk about in our school system, we've talked about students having the opportunity to dabble a little bit with things that they're interested in, and maybe they're not a program completer, although some of the legislation makes that a little bit complicated because we don't want students not to be completers, so they can only take but so many. but certainly in our society that we live in today, we'd love more students to have culinary skills and some of those basic skills. So I think it can serve a number of different purposes.
Oh, okay, thank you both. I appreciate those two perspectives. Annette, while you're up, I have one that's directed to you. How long did it take you to get Project 100 started in your school district?
It all started with social media. It doesn't always go back to social media with me, but oftentimes it does. I was watching a video of a charter school one night in August as a first-year principal, and I texted my assistant principal. I said, "You got to see this video of what this charter school is doing. I think it's a super great idea." And I said, "Can we do it? Can we get 100% of our kids to commit to something beyond Pocomoke High School to getting an education?" He's like, "Yeah, we can, but it'll take us 4 years to do it. So we got to start with freshmen." So in the relationship that we had, I texted him right back, and I was like, "Great, we'll start in September with everybody." So we're not there yet. 100% of our kids got accepted to college, which is great. But in all honesty, 100% of them didn't go on to college. But we did work very hard that they had that, number one, they have the college option open for them. But many of them were still going into apprenticeships or going into the military. The thing that we're really struggling with right now and trying to figure out a good way to do this is really how to track our kids. I mean, the good thing about it is that we're a small town, so basically I got, 85 kids graduating to 90 in a graduating class. I can literally go out and talk to people and find out where they are. And so but we'd really like to have some stronger data, and Clearinghouse only provides us with college. So, and it's not all colleges are included in there. I mean, most of them are, but we're still not there yet. This is our, this will be our 4th intent night this year. So all of our kids participate. All of our kids have a plan when they leave us. And I would say we're probably really close to I'd say about 80% of them probably making that plan, and actually seeing it out. Because sometimes it just doesn't work out for our kids for various reasons.
Okay, that's really helpful, Annette. Thank you. And I think that I appreciate the fact that you're being incredibly candid, because I think that's important, right? It's one thing to hear about something like Project 100, and it's real easy to kind of dismiss, well, we couldn't do that here because of C. And what you've done is shown that your school did not come to this without its own obstacles and barriers, and that it's an ever-evolving process, that there's no such kind of constant present themselves, being able to work collaboratively to get around them with that goal, that common goal in mind. So thank you for that. Let's see, I'm going to jump to, although Common Core standards are controversial, it was recently reported that high school graduation rates have reached an all-time high of 83%. So this is for either of you, but do you think the increased graduation rate is due to the Common Core, or do you think other factors? And Patty, I'm certainly thinking about the data you showed about enthusiasm for Common Core, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, for one thing, it's probably a little early to say, since Common Core has been implemented now for 4 or 5 years, so we may be seeing a bump from that. Or maybe it is the effect of changing instruction and the emphasis on relevance, and that's keeping kids in school. Certainly at the same time this is happening, we're seeing more CTE type hands-on programs integrated with the higher academics. That is, we know, does motivate kids to stay in school. But there are a lot of things that went into this stew. I have to give some credit to the data systems that have been put in place over the last 10, 15 years, and what we know about identifying students who are at risk of dropping out early on, and even as early as middle school, and providing interventions. And all you principals on the phone out there, you're doing an amazing job at that. I think that has a lot to do with it. I think simply the economy. Kids are getting the message that you have to have at minimum a high school diploma. So there's a lot that is contributing to it, but I will just want to mention that at 83.5%, that's the 4-year rate. Our estimates, if you included 5 and kids who stay in and get that standard diploma, but it takes them 5 or 6 years, that could conceivably add anywhere from 3 to 5 more percentage points to that. So, good job.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. So I am checking our time, and we still have about 5 more minutes. I'm going to throw this one out there and see where it lands. Do all students really need Algebra 2?
This is Annette. I'm a math teacher, so I love this question. Common Core Algebra 2 has changed. For anybody who's familiar with the old Algebra 2, the new Algebra 2 is very similar to pre-calculus. So if I were to be honest, when I was a math teacher, I used pre-calculus every day in my job. As a high school principal, I never used pre-calculus in my job. And I try to do, and I would venture to say that no one on my administrative staff uses it, and no one on my staff except for my math teachers use pre-calculus every day. So as a lover of math, I personally, and it's just a personal opinion, which is worth not much probably, but I would say that students don't need Algebra 2 to be successful in high school. I don't think all students are ready for it. I do think that if they decide that they want to go on to college, that hopefully by then with a couple more years of experience, I often found that my kids, like, they just weren't ready sometimes. And sometimes then I would have a senior who, I had a 9th grade who didn't do well, and I have them as a senior and they're ready for it. But some of those advanced math concepts kids just aren't conceptually ready for, and if they decide to move on to college, and that's certainly that math that they're seeing in Algebra 2 now, which is a lot of pre-calculus topics, certainly they might be more prepared to approach that then and be successful. But I'm interested to hear what Patty has to say about that.
Okay, I'm going to disagree slightly, but I will qualify it because the Common Core math it has restructured Algebra 2 a little bit, add a lot more data, which I like seeing, and statistics. But also, Annette, you're working with the Common Core of kids who came into your high school who did not have that benefit. And when I say Common Core, that's my shorthand. I know there are a lot of non-Common Core college-ready, career-ready standards out there that, but still take the same approach to math. And so I think if it all works out, that within the next 5 to 10 years, you will see that your students are better prepared for that mathematics in high school. On the other side of it, I got to say that it almost doesn't matter what adult outcome you look at, whether it is, whether they're social outcomes, whether they're health outcomes, likelihood of exercising, healthy lifestyles, smoking, the college outcomes. It's like all arrows point back to Algebra 2. Now, we don't know why necessarily, but it's there. And the last thing I want to say about that is, yes, it is the college preparatory math. And those students, the electricians, and all of the students who are getting these good, skilled jobs out of high school when they're prepared well, it's great. But in 10 years, we don't know what of those jobs will still be in existence. Whole occupations are disappearing with technology. So all of our kids have to be prepared to be able to tap back into whatever educational opportunities are out there so they can continue to learn all their lives.
I'd love to have a whole webinar on that.
I'll be happy to be here. Just let me know.
Follow-up webinar.
It is a great follow-up webinar. And I will say, as a parent of a 16-year-old in Algebra 2 right now and a former middle and high school principal, you both make really excellent points. And as a parent, I'm erring on the side, of course, for my kiddos. You know what? Better to have it just in case. But yeah, I'm not going to promise you that you're going to need it every day of your life. But we don't know what your career is going to be. And so why not have it, as a safety net, if you will, which is a very different conversation than having it because it's required or having it, you know, because you have to or what have you. But I'm going to leave it alone, but I'm happy to moderate that webinar if you guys put it together. With that, it is 3:30, and we are wrapping up. I want to thank all the folks who did join us today. We know how busy your schedules are. It's difficult to pull away when you're involved with schools or school leadership at all. Again, doesn't matter what your role is. Carving out time for professional learning is so incredibly important to your own growth and the work that you do, and yet hard to do. So thank you for that. I want to thank Annette and Patty on behalf of NASSP for being with us today and presenting all the information in a way that makes sense to us and that we're able to grab onto. And folks, I want to remind you that, again, if you go to our NASSP website, rather, you will find in just a few days likely the link for this webinar. So if you want to review it again, the recording, and or you want to share it with others, you'll be able to do that. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a great afternoon, and we hope to see you at our next webinar opportunity. Take care, folks.